be honest, Crumlin, when I was growing up, had a really bad reputation. Like, it was just all like drugs, violence, gangs.
You've got to go balls deep, to be blunt, into your business, because then you've got no kind of plan B, no backtrack, no safety net, and you then do commit more and you do more.
We work directly with organic hemp farmers. So what we do is we bring in the raw hemp and then we do everything from there to make the finished product. So we're basically like a chemical-free process. So we use high pressure and low heat.
So it's a lot of time, but the network you build is invaluable. The credibility you build by having that on, you're a board member of this association, that body.
I was working in nightclubs, I was doing event security, and I was actually doing the private investigation work because two of my uncles and my dad is actually a qualified private investigator.
Welcome back to another episode of Success is a System. I'm Mike Greene, and today I've got with me David Hartigan. David has got a really interesting career, and the bit that I want to focus on today is how someone can go from various jobs, disparate jobs, to a really good corporate career, to then dump that in the pursuit of his own business and go into the startup space and then evolve from there. Because what I do know is that people are increasingly looking at multiple careers across their life. Go back just a couple of decades, people were looking for a job for life. These days, people are willing to kiss a few frogs to find their prince. And I want to understand where those motivations come from, what the pain points are there, and how that journey is going and where David looks to go in the future. So join us for this journey and we'll see where it takes us. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Mike.
Delighted to be here. The way across from Ireland?
Yeah. No, delighted to be here because I know we met a couple of times and I'd kind of said to you that I'd love to come on the podcast because over, I suppose, the last kind of year to 2 years, I've tried to do more and more podcasts and kind of, I suppose, build my public speaking. So, no, delighted to be here.
Brilliant. And part of the reason, other than that journey, which I thought was quite interesting, and actually quite a lot of entrepreneurs are now losing focus with corporate and wanting to get into their own business, and I'm willing to work twice as hard for myself as I am for someone else, and so on and so on. But also you gave me some of your CBD oil, the Hemp Hero CBD oil, and I've been involved and around businesses that have done that, and I've heard about that. I've never tried it, and I thought I don't need external stuff to sleep, and I sleep well, except what I found is, as I've got older more, as we do, I wake up a bit more in the night. Yeah. And literally, I wake up because I need a pee, and boom, my brain says, what are we going to do tomorrow? Oh, you've got to do this. And it's like, fuck, I can't go back to sleep. And you said, just try this, a couple of drops under your tongue, and it'll increase your deep sleep. And you can correct any points in a second. Yeah. And I thought, fuck, I want nothing to try. You gave me a bottle of it. I tried it, and it was fucking transformational. Yeah. I mean, really, really different. For the first time, some nights I went right through. Yeah. Even if I did wake up, I fell back to sleep much quicker. And I wasn't needing more sleep, but I noticed the sleep hours, so let's say I normally have between 6 and 7, I slept deeper. And so I woke up more refreshed. Is that a normal experience? Yeah,
no, definitely. And it's funny. So how kind of I got into this space was actually through managing pro athletes, and we can get into that in a minute. But I'd say 50% of our customer base use our products for sleep. And I think it's probably a common theme with entrepreneurs that usually right before bed, that's when all your great ideas come to you. And then if you wake up in the morning and you're just flooded with ideas of what I need to do, what I didn't do yesterday, what has to happen this week, and it's just impossible to get to sleep, your mind is racing, where the CBD, it's not a sedative by any means, but it just helps you kind of get into a much deeper sleep, a much better quality sleep. So it just means if you are, I suppose, not getting enough sleep, at least the sleep you're getting is good quality.
And so without getting into massive detail or science, how does it do that? What is it about? Because we're not talking marijuana, the drug, or the kind of hallucinogenic side. We're talking about a different part of that plant, aren't we? But what does it do? How does it calm me down? How does it quieten my brain, help me with deeper sleep? Yeah, so interestingly, I was only actually speaking this the other week. So there's been a couple of studies done in animals, and they've actually shown that CBD reduces cortisol levels, it's your actual stress hormone. Okay. And usually anxiety and stress are quite closely related with sleep issues, because it's kind of a perpetuating thing in that if you're anxious, you don't sleep great. Because you don't sleep great, you're more anxious. And it's kind of this vicious cycle. Yeah, and I guess the worst extreme of that is I had a guy who, his father was terminally ill, And positively, it flipped, and his father suddenly was like miraculously cured. But the guy, it's called preparatory grief, had sort of planned his life beyond his father, which then you feel guilty about because shit, he's going to die. I'm thinking. Anyway, his father getting the all clear stole this guy's future psychologically. If you think about it, he planned to live with his girlfriend, didn't have to look after his father, and it like really fucked his brain up, and he had a psychotic experience. But over a period of 5 to 7 days, he wasn't getting any sleep. Because he wasn't getting any sleep, it was really fucking with his psychology and his blood sugars, and it culminated in him killing his father. So the extremes of anxiety and sleep deprivation can lead to a really dark and bad place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sometimes it's not just nice to, it's necessary. I guess.
Yeah, well, like if you ever listen to your man Andrew Huberman, like he says, don't ask people how they are, ask them how they sleep. He said it's a much better indicator. Yeah, which is pretty cool because like when you look into kind of a lot of the research around sleep, like if you're not getting enough sleep, it's probably one of the biggest factors in terms of like your comorbidity, in terms of obviously your overall health. How you sleep and how good you sleep also impact your food choices. So generally, if you sleep poor, you're going to go for more kind of sugary foods, more caffeine. So yeah, it's hugely important. But one of the main mechanisms it looks like the way CBD helps you sleep is definitely on the anxiety side and reducing that kind of stress hormone. And we're doing a study now in dogs to actually see how much it reduces your actual cortisol levels. And then it's just your overall quality of sleep. You just get into a much deeper sleep.
It's almost like you were there with me in my 20s and 30s as you were saying some of those things, because I was crazy. And I thought, all the old sayings, I'll sleep when I die, Wall Street or what have you. And they literally used to get about 4 hours sleep. I'd be going to dinners. We were in London going to dinners, awards dinners, client dinners, whatever. I'd be getting the train home. I'd get home about 1 o'clock. I'd be up at 5 o'clock and on the train by 6:10. And I was then trying to piece together, well, on the train, it's a 46-minute journey. I could probably fall asleep for 30 minutes. I've got this journey from Farringdon to Hammersmith. I could probably fall asleep in the cab for 30 minutes. Trying to piece together about 6 hours. I mean, it fucked my health because I had ulcers by the time I was 30. I was grey by the time I was 35. And I was kind of literally giving up my health to get my wealth. And then you end up spending a lot of your wealth to get your health back. And so on. And part of the health thing wasn't just a lack of sleep. As you said, I was eating shit because it was a pasty or a sandwich. It was all brown food.
It's grab and go,
on the way. It's not just brown food, but it's brown food with preservatives and all sorts of crap in it. So it's an interesting overview on many people's lives, especially entrepreneurs.
Big time. Yeah, like because I'm probably like someone who does it as well. In that, like, if you're working really hard, usually one of the first things you give up is sleep. You'll go, okay, look, I'll just push through, do an extra 2 hours, cut back on the sleep. And then in the long term, you do more damage to yourself because you're not sleeping, you're not thinking right. You're just not performing at the level you need to be performing at.
We had a podcast a couple of months ago with, what's her name? Got a business called Get Your Shit Together. She's really funny, Australian lady, but great at what she does. And one of the things she says is the fallacy of believing we can catch up our sleep at weekends. You literally cannot catch up your sleep. You can never catch up your sleep. If you don't get enough sleep tonight, it's starting to have an impact on your health. You can't have a longer night. You might feel like you can, and you might feel refreshed if you have a longer sleep, but there is a health toll that you pay whenever you don't get enough sleep. So I'm really serious about that now. And even if I can't always sleep, I make sure I get that bedtime to at least 7 hours, if you like. And if I have had a bad night's sleep, I'll try and do a meditation in the day to just go to a calmer state in that. But listen, I want to go back. We're going to come back to this point in your life, but I want to go back because what I always like to understand is, where do people come from? What are those earliest drivers of ambition, of drive? And clearly you've got ambition, and I often say to people, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince in different ways, and you were willing to do that in your career. And as I was looking through, we met in Ireland, talked a little bit, and I knew you'd done PwC before, but literally I looked at you were marketing, did security, you did events, you did sports management, a little spell as a private investigator, and then you went corporate as a consultant PwC. So they must have seen something in you, because normally they recruit from university as opposed to people who've had a bit of a career for management consultancy. And then after getting that time in management consultancy and becoming a senior manager there, you chuck it all in to set up your own business. So tell me a little bit about you growing up. Was there ambition instilled in you from your mother, your father, your family, your friends, the school? Was there a particular teacher? Were brothers, sisters involved? Tell us, not War and Peace, but a quick summary of what is the foundation of David Hartigan that has brought you to be the person you are, if we think of it as a foundation on which you built your current house, if you like.
Yeah, so I suppose like as a kid, I've always been fascinated with how businesses work and kind of what makes them tick and maybe what makes one successful and another one fail. And I probably come from a family of entrepreneurs. So all of my uncles are all tradesmen, they're all roofers. They've an incredible work ethic, like all of them still work today and they do insane hours. So I kind of grew up with that. And then equally my dad's an entrepreneur. He was in the kind of nightclub industry. So like I suppose I grew up around it and it maybe gave me that appetite that like I knew long term I always wanted something of my own. I come from just a normal working class background. So like I'm actually from Crumlin in Dublin. So Crumlin is probably a little bit more famous now for McGregor. So that's where he's originally from.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And you didn't go to a private school or anything?
No, I went to the local school. And to be honest, Crumlin, when I was growing up, had a really bad reputation. Like it was just all like drugs, violence, gangs. Like it was very much a working class area. Didn't have a great reputation. Like I can remember even on nights out when I was in college, 18, 19, and you'd chat to someone and be like, oh, where are you from? Crumlin. And you look at you like, oh God, like don't rob me. So it didn't have a great reputation and like just went to the local school, nothing special. And I suppose I'd always kind of had the entrepreneurial flair, and school, it probably wasn't the right fit for me. Not that I didn't like it, it was just I found the subjects weren't really of my interest.
So did you jump straight into work or did you go to uni?
No, so I went to uni. So I ended up studying. So like the A levels in Ireland are called the Leaving Cert. So you can get up to 600 points. I actually studied quite hard, but I only got 280. Right. So a lot less than I expected. And that actually put me in an awkward situation because in order to get into certain college courses, basically it meant then I needed to have, I think, 300 and above. So I ended up getting actually a placement in Tal IT, which is kind of a local college. In business management, because I'd always had this interest in business. And then even kind of during school, I'd kind of tried my hand at a couple of different, not exactly startups, but at one point I was actually making homebrew beer and selling it to my friends. So I'd always kind of had this flair of like, I knew I wanted to do something.
Was it any good?
It actually wasn't too bad, to be fair. Yeah. Right. I had good alcohol content, to put it that way. Wasn't winning any taste awards. So yeah, I'd kind of had that flair for doing something, and then it made the most sense to do something in a degree in business. So I was like, look, business management's a nice overall course. I think it'll give me a good kind of round perspective of what I want to do. So then done 4 years in that, and it was coming towards the kind of tail end.
To interject, but a lot of people fall out of those courses.
Yeah.
Was there a particular lecturer or teacher or somebody in there that kept you inspired, or was it just your drive of where you wanted to be that kept you 4 years, quite a long time?
Yeah.
Business studies is a good course, but it's quite general.
Yeah.
It's not like obsessively focused towards a particular job. What kept you going for that period?
Yeah, well, I suppose it was kind of, I wanted to have a good stable background in terms of some sort of a degree. I still didn't know what I wanted to do after. And during that time, I actually kind of built up a lot of my work experience. So like I was working in nightclubs, I was doing event security, and I was actually doing the private investigation work. Because two of my uncles and my dad is actually a qualified private investigator.
Okay.
So
I wonder where that came from.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting space. And at one point I did consider, do I want to go into that full time? But I think the idea of kind of the business side of things and working in businesses or starting a business kind of interested me more. And how I kind of got into consulting was actually in my final year in my degree. I ended up doing a module in marketing. And basically I met a friend of my uncle's who ran a restaurant, got chatting to him, and I was like,
a roastery or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was like, look, how do you find your marketing? And he was like, to be honest, quite difficult. So I said to him, look, love to come and maybe give you a hand. Maybe you could have a chat and see what I could do for you. And ended up working with him for about 6 months. He actually won an award called the Best Restaurant in Dublin Award. Wow. The first year it ran. So worked really well. And then I was like, oh, I really like this consultancy thing. I wonder if I could go into businesses and basically see how they work and try and improve them and kind of turn them around. And at the time I was coming to the end of my degree, and to be honest, this would have been like 2016, so there wasn't much happening. A lot of people were going into banks, and I didn't really want to go into a bank. So I heard about a master's then in Smurfit Business School, which would be one of the best business schools in Europe.
Wow. Yeah.
So they had a management consultancy course. So I was like, oh, okay, there's actually a pathway. I didn't know there was an actual kind of, I suppose, a profession here for consultants. And the only issue was it was 12.5 grand at the time to do the masters.
Yeah.
So I ended up actually applying for a scholarship, and I ended up getting the scholarship, which paid half my fees.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So I got a scholarship they give to 12 people in Ireland each year called the Aspire Scholarship.
And at that point, did you think, wow, PwC, you know, I know lots of young adults now who PwC, EY, KPMG, that's the kind, if I can get into those consultancies, I'm bloody made for life. I'll be a partner. I mean, it is seen very much as once you're on that track, you're either going to end up in C-suite within a major company, or you're going to end up as a senior consultant partner at one of those consultancies. Did you always know you were going to leave after a certain period and do your own thing, or tell me that part of your journey? Yeah,
so interestingly, my A-levels, my leaving cert came back to haunt me because I'd done all this incredible work experience. Like I'd worked as a private investigator. I got a first class honours in my undergrad, and then I got this scholarship, which they literally only give to 12 people in Ireland each year. And the idea of the scholarship, it's for people who don't have the financial backing to pursue a master's, but have the potential to be future business leaders. So in that interview, I had a 5-person interview. It was a panel, and it was actually one of the interviewers was the former CFO for Paddy Power. Mm-hmm. So like there were really big people who I actually had to interview with, and luckily I got the scholarship. But my leaving cert came back to haunt me, and a lot of the big four at the time, they were looking for minimum 500 points, and I had 280.
Isn't it stupid?
That
they're looking at a piece of paper as opposed to a person and experience.
Exactly. Yeah. So what actually happened was I'd applied for all the big four, so like Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, EY, and I got nothing back. I heard crickets. So I was like, well, most of the people in my course at the time in the masters had never done any work experience, never held a job.
But they had the paper.
So they had 500 points. They went to the private schools. So I just wasn't getting seen. And what actually happened was I had to apply to PwC 3 times to get an interview. So I was just hell bent. And it's probably one of my good factors I have is that when it comes to persistence, I'm really persistent if I want something. So I applied 3 times. 3rd time around, I actually got an interview for their summer internship, and went in for the summer internship. I interviewed so well, they actually gave me the grad program.
Great.
Yeah.
Well done. So you were there, they trained the shit out of you, which I'm always impressed with. And I did spelling different corporates myself, and you realise afterwards that they've probably spent more on training you each year than your salary, definitely. And you've got all of that, which is powerful in business, because I think a lot of people who just start as an entrepreneur, want to be an entrepreneur, they fail so much, and they fail so much because they're shit at planning, if I'm honest. They don't set goals. They don't set a strategy. They think a bit of hard work and a cool idea is going to be successful. But there's no doubt about it in my mind that you would have understood the importance of structure, of research, of right people, of knowing a sector and knowing a niche that you're going to go for. And so how long before you left them did you know what you wanted to do? Was Hemp Heroes an idea that was germinating early on, or was it something else? Or what?
Yeah, so it was kind of a roundabout way. So like I knew when I joined PwC, obviously I was really fortunate to get it because it's highly competitive in terms of actually getting a place in their grad program. So that year I think they only took on 60 people, and they could have thousands of applications. So when I kind of joined, I was like, I think this is a really good place for me to actually learn, and it'd be nearly kind of a paid education again, where I could get more expertise, get a really good network. And like I always knew long term I didn't want to stay till partner. Like I think from day one, because we had people come in and say, oh, I've been here 20 years. That to me sounded like hell. The idea of working there your whole life, and like I understand you're obviously in a big salary, but like I wanted to build something for me, not for someone else.
So have you ever regretted that? Because some of these partners are on millions. And they have lots of minions that do all their work for them, but you're still chasing around building your business. Personally, I've always loved the hunger of that chase. But, have you ever looked back and thought, maybe I should have, this is tough? No, I think like at points it could have been an easier option, but I kind of always wanted to be the captain of my own ship and kind of control my own fate. So like got really good experience there. And it was actually probably into maybe my 2nd year in PwC. I'd still had that hunger to do something, and basically what actually happened was I started managing pro athletes. So in a roundabout way, I ended up speaking to a guy who just newly got signed to UFC, John Phillips,
and met with him and basically pitched him on the idea of being his manager.
And when you say managing pro athletes, what are you managing? Their marketing?
Yeah, their marketing and their so marketing and basically their sponsors.
Right.
Yeah. So like by no means training them or anything like that.
So and this was 2 years in.
Yeah.
You stayed there 6 years, is that right?
Yeah, 6 years, yeah.
So did you start Hemp Heroes in parallel, or did you just tell us about how the transition, if you like, from PwC to Hemp Heroes?
Unlock your potential with Success is a System. Join us every month for new episodes packed with strategies and insights to fuel your success journey. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and start achieving more.
It actually happened through managing the fighters, because what I'd done is I'd kind of looked at what sponsors I could get them. And what happened was I worked so well with John, I actually picked up another fighter, got the 2 guys sponsored by CBD brands. And that's how the whole CBD space came onto my radar. So when I got the products, like everything was just dreadful. The packaging, the branding, the pricing, the quality. And my day job was to look at problems and find solutions. So I was like, right, how do we fix this problem? And I done 8 months of research, looked at the industry, basically looked at all the competitors. I was actually even on hemp farms in Ireland, actually to see how it grew, and really went deep into it. And then made a decision.
I think you became a director of the Association for Cannabis or something. What was it?
Yeah, so I ended up joining the board probably about a year or two later for the Irish Hemp Cooperative. And now I sit on the board for the Cannabis Trade Association in the UK, which would be the largest kind of like non-profit for the cannabis and hemp sector.
And I just want to pick up on that slightly, because a lot of people become so obsessed about their product, their service, their business, that they forget to network. And you know, that saying about your network is your net worth.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, joining those things, it's going to take up time. It's going to take up emails. It is non-paid, I assume.
No.
So it's a lot of time, but the network you build is invaluable. The credibility you build by having that on, you know, you're a board member of this association, that body that is regulating, which automatically gives your product a higher level of credibility or authority, because you have a deemed trust attached. And if people do business with people they like, know and trust, I might get to like and know you just because of a relationship, but the trust can take years to build. You being on the board of those very respected and important bodies immediately ticks that trust box. And yet so many entrepreneurs, no, that networking shit, I don't want to talk to those old people or whatever it is, and they completely miss it. And I there's probably not one of my videos or conferences where I'm not talking about the value of networking. Did you get that from PwC, or did you just naturally, was it part of your research? Why? Because 2 bodies at a point that you're trying to think of a startup and get going, that are each going to take some time each month, and then there's calls, there's emails, there's all that. Did you naturally understand the power of networking, or did you just do it by default?
I've kind of always understood the power of networking, to be honest, because like usually if I meet someone, I'll go out of my way if I can identify someone who I think I could possibly help them or they could help me. It can be kind of mutually beneficial. So I've always been kind of a really good networker. Cool. So like that'd be one of the main reasons why I've got involved with different kind of non-profits or different kind of organizations. It does pull on your time, but I think you do get a lot back, and you have your ear to the ground that you're kind of first to hear what's happening.
Well, and because of that, you clearly have built a skill in networking. And people often think, I am good or I'm not good, or I'm shy or I'm not that kind of person. And I say, if you never trained any muscles, if you literally laid in bed all day, your muscles would atrophy. Most skills are learnt, developed, grown, worked, as opposed to natural. And yet, you know, I remember the first time we met, you came straight up, you had your pitch ready. I'm David, I do this, here's one of my things, I'd love to try it, blah, blah. And you had that pitch, you were ready, you were happy to interrupt. And I say that it wasn't an aggressive or rude thing, a conversation to get your point across. And that's how we met.
Yeah.
And yet so many people, even if they do go to networking events,
they're afraid.
They chat to someone they know, or they sit in a corner, and then they'll go over and say, it was shit, no one talked to me. And I think, did you talk to anyone?
You don't put yourself out there, what do you expect? Yeah.
But when you put yourself out to me, the other thing you and I'm going to get this wrong, but one of the things that compelled me in your mini pitch was, and you showed me, ours is brown, a lot of these hemp oils are clear. They're virtually, I can't remember how you said it, but I read it to be, they're virtually overcooked or overprocessed.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I thought, is that a bit like a shit fried oil versus a cold pressed oil kind of thing. Explain that bit to me. That is the quality of your product over others.
Yeah, so I suppose like that was one of the main things that drew me to the industry, because it was such a poor quality at the time. So we originally started with a manufacturer in the UK who was doing 4 white label products for us. So essentially they were manufacturing, we were the brand. And then over the last 6 years, we brought it all in-house. So we make all of our own products, and we work directly with organic hemp farmers. So what we do is we bring in the raw hemp, and then we do everything from there to make the finished product. So we're basically like a chemical-free process. So we use high pressure and low heat. And for a better word, we basically like juice the hemp plant. Now, what that means is that like a lot of the molecules...
It is a bit like cold pressed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of the molecules that are in the hemp plant, they're very heat sensitive. And you see when you use chemicals for it to make the extraction, you usually have to re-extract the chemical. And a lot of that's done through heat.
Right.
So for example, like another way that you'd process to make CBD products would be ethanol. So you'd get hemp, you'd soak it in alcohol, you'd extract the CBD, and then you have to burn off the alcohol. But then again, you're basically...
But that affects the efficacy.
Yeah, it affects the benefits of it, exactly. So that's why our products are much more potent and much more effective, because we've minimized the heat as much as we can. And essentially you're getting all of the elements in there. So it's a much more effective product.
So what's been the biggest sort of problems, fuck ups, headaches in building Hemp Heroes?
Oh, geez, there was plenty. Well, initially when I started the company in 2018, I was still working full time. So for 4 years, I basically worked full time while building the business. And I actually started with John. So we were 50-50 partners. And one of the probably big fuck ups I made, and it was probably naive, was we'd no shareholders agreement. So that was a fun experience, because eventually John actually decided to leave the business and I ended up buying him over. But that was a difficult conversation to have, because essentially there was no guidelines. He could have asked me for 4 unicorns, and unless I could get them, it was a difficult conversation to have. So that was definitely one of the big learnings. And then throughout the process, bringing our products from being a white label brand, which we had no manufacturing capabilities, to building our manufacturing and our processes, our machinery, that was a huge leap, where I don't come from an engineering background or a manufacturing background. So that was all trial and error to getting it to where we are now.
And what would you change if you went back there and had a free reign? You could get different people, you could get money, let's say, you could get influence. What would you do differently?
In one way, I probably might have left PwC earlier, because I think it was that fear of, I don't know if the business is capable enough to keep up, and I was getting paid really well. So if I had probably jumped earlier, I'd say the business would be a lot further along than where it is.
That's a really interesting point, because the Americans have a saying, and it's based on baseball, that you can't steal second base with 1 foot on first.
Yeah.
And, it might be rounders here in the UK, but we don't want to leave the safety of first base.
Yeah.
We know we've got to get to second, because if we don't leave it, we're going to get run out anyway. But whilst we're here, we're safe. To take a step off of that base, we then got to go to second base, but there is a fear that I'll be struck out before I get there, kind of thing. And I think that's true of many people. They want their cake and eat it. They don't want to fully commit, and you can't have your cake and eat it kind of thing. You've got to go balls deep, to be blunt, into your business, because then you've got no kind of plan B, no backtrack, no safety net, and you then do commit more and you do more, and it becomes your necessary passion rather than guilty pleasure, if you like. Yeah,
no, true. And I suppose it's like what the Romans used to do. They used to burn the boats, So it's the same thing in that, you've no retreat. And when I made that leap, I suppose I still had a safety net in a sense, and that I'd say PwC would happily take me back. But I knew that I want to go with this 110% and there's no turning back. So when I made that leap, it was that commitment that I'm going to put everything into it. And I probably work harder now than I ever did before.
So, and if you were now going back and PwC said, David, you've worked with us, you built your own business since, come back in and speak to our graduate entry level team this year. What would you be saying to them? Or if you were speaking to entrepreneurs at a business centre, what would be your 2 or 3 key points that you'd make?
Probably persistence. I'd say that's probably got me the furthest so far, in terms that I'm extremely persistent, and that even some of the retailers that we stock now, initially they laughed at me. We've a huge pets range. I remember one they've built me 10 pet stores, and I seen them at an event. I was like, look, we have this product, and we had one product at the time. And your man actually said, there's no one who's going to pay 40 quid for that. Physically laughed at me. And then I was like, look, in the long term, I just became more determined. I was like, I'm going to fucking prove this guy wrong. And he now stocks our products and was one of our probably best customers. So persistence, like you have to have grit and persistence.
Well, and
like,
on that point, it's really interesting. I remember I was running a research business here in America, Australia, New Zealand during the 2008-9 COVID depression, if you like, global recession. And we noticed that people might eat a bit less meat, they might eat out less. They were making changes to their spend to survive in that global depression recession. But what they never did was change their pet food. They wouldn't say he'll be all right with own label, as opposed to this big brand. And their pets were almost like untouchable in terms of it's not their fault. I'm not going to change it. The money that people will invest in pets is incredible. And so the people who just see, well, it's just a bloody dog, don't get it. To someone who owns a dog that's a part of the family that gives unconditional love, whether I'm late or drunk or still wags its tail for me, kind of thing. So I get that, because I know the money people will spend on their pets.
And like pets and children are basically probably the two recession-proof industries.
So persistence.
Persistence is absolutely one of them. I suppose networking would be the other one. Like the amount of people I've met who've been able to help me, or kind of like vice versa. Like absolutely, like networking is key, and it makes a difference between sometimes getting a listing or getting to that next level, or just not getting to that stage. So like your network is huge. I'd put a big emphasis on it, and like I tried to go to different events to network. Like that's how we ended up meeting, obviously, at the Weld Summit. And I suppose the third part would be just don't burn yourself out. Like I was very close to burn out a couple of times.
With hemp, that keeping that anxiety down, getting that sleep is key. And I probably was guilty of not doing that in my younger years, but I really understand the value of it now. But a key thing you said then about networking, and we talked a bit earlier about networking, was the number of people that have helped me that I've met networking. Now, most people go networking and all they do is straight into a sell. Oh, this is my product. Can I give you a card? Or can I? And it's like, fucking hell. People don't, they don't care how much you know, and they don't care about your products till they know how much you care. So listen first, sell second, kind of thing. But interestingly, one of the keys that I often teach people is, you said the number of people helped me. Most people are afraid to ask for help, or won't ask for help, because they'll consider that people will read that as a weakness in their business. Did you actively ask for help? Because I think there is a subtle sell that says, I'm trying to get my business off the ground. Oh, you've been doing this. Could you help me with this? And people want to help generally if they can. But I've not heard people talk about help coming from networking. It's more, I met a customer, I met a financier or so. What made you say, use that as a context for your networking? And to be fair, I would ask people for help quite regularly, and like my network is quite good in that sense that like it's, I suppose the worry is what you don't know, and then you try go after something. So you're better off going to somebody who's already been there, has the expertise. So with the scholarship, I'd be quite fortunate. The family who actually provided the scholarship that I got, they have a fantastic network, and they're really well established business. So like I'd regularly kind of meet with him, especially when I was going through the process of buying over John, my partner at the time. Like that was a complete minefield. I got as much help as possible there, where like it was just out of my depth. So I don't think it's a sign of weakness. I think it's more of a sign of strength to know where your weak points are. Well, and also I think it's quite endearing that when it's a sign of strength, not weakness. If you look at, say, let's use gorillas as an example. And they're one of the closest animals to us, if you like, in many ways. And what you'll see when they fight, they don't kind of cover themselves and protect their kind of organs and so on. They'll literally go like that. And that's saying, I'm so confident in my ability that I'm willing to expose my weakest areas, because I know I'm going to win, kind of thing. And I sometimes use that as an example that all too often we're so scared of looking weak. We're so scared of being seen as incapable that we kind of do the big I am, or talk about how fucking great we are, as opposed to saying, I know I've got a good product. I know I've got good experience. No one will beat me on my work ethic, but I could do with some help here. And actually, I think when people, it's very authentic as well. When people think, I'm happy to help him, But so many people will never ask for help because they see that as a sign of weakness.
I think it's probably, they see it as a sign of weakness, and also it's probably the fear of failure.
Yeah, but you're more likely to fail if you don't get some.
Exactly.
Help,
yeah.
It's kind of it's that opposite to what they expect, isn't it? Anyway, time is going by, and I can't believe it. I could talk to you for hours, and we'll maybe do another session in the months to come. But what next? Where does Hemp Heroes go? What else are you working on? How far in the future do you normally plan? Do you see? Do you visualize 10 years? Do you visualize 20 years? Do you visualize just 2 months? How do you plan the future? What do you see in the future, and what are you working on?
Yeah, so I suppose like Hemp Heroes is nearly two businesses in one, because we've our pet side and then we've the human side. So like the pets it's growing astronomically. So like we've actually a big trade show now in Vegas this year to kind of tap into the US market. So I think when it comes to the pet industry, there's huge opportunities. As you said, people have spent any amount of money on their pets, and like we've done some really cool studies so far. Like we've done one with the largest veterinary college in UCD, basically to show that our products help with pain management for arthritis and dogs. And then the next study that we're doing now is the anxiety study. So if we can get them behind us, I think there's a huge opportunity in the pets kind of space. And then equally on the human side, like you've seen obviously for sleep, I think 1 in 3 people have issues with sleep. Massive market there, massive opportunity.
Especially when you pick up your point earlier about don't ask how you're doing, ask how you've slept.
Exactly.
It is the kind of foundation of most of our health, I guess.
Oh, big time, yeah. So like on the human side, again, there's huge opportunity. So we just this year got a listing with Holland & Barrett for Ireland, which obviously is huge. And the idea then is to actually kind of grow into the UK market, because in H&B UK, it's about 720 stores. It's only about 80 in Ireland. So like it's a huge difference. Like in the UK, obviously it's a multi-million-pound business a year for CBD. So
and of course, I used to work in retail myself, and once you get into a key operator, the other operators are going and looking at what they're doing.
Exactly.
And, I remember Rosie Jolly, who's great at startups as well, talking about, I went for Harrods because if I knew if I got Harrods, I'd get Selfridges, I'd get John Lewis, I'd get the individual spas and regional spas and so on, because that was a CBD business in more cosmetics that she had as well. Aim high, and the rest just kind of falls into place.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So like there's huge room to expand, and it kind of the focus probably international markets. So UK, US, mainland Europe. We've not so much hit saturation in Ireland, but like we're relatively well known. We have a good kind of retail presence. So it's definitely the bigger populations, bigger markets that we need to go after. So that's kind of the plan now for the next kind of 2-3 years.
And do you do any B2C direct, or are you mostly B2B?
Yeah, so we do B2C. So we've actually a new website, and that's just been developed. So we're moving to Shopify. So the idea there is to drive even more traffic there and more kind of revenue. It probably accounts for maybe 40% of our revenue. Yeah. So it is still a big part of our business. But I think growth-wise, unless we were to take in massive investment and really kind of funnel it in, I think growing on a B2B side is much easier, where they have the customer bases, they have the footfall. We can grow a lot quicker.
So if people listening, what website should they be looking at?
So hempheroes.com. So HEMPHEROS.com.
Brilliant. Yeah. And the question I asked about how far ahead are you planned? Do you have written goals? How far do you write them?
Yeah.
How much clarity do you have on where you want to be?
Yeah, so usually the goals, we kind of go on a year-by-year basis in terms of this year, and then kind of I do have long-term goals as well, kind of 3 to 5 year goals in terms of where we want to be and kind of the longevity of the business. Still kind of in two minds whether I want to have this as a kind of legacy business and run it for the next 20 years or down the line hopefully get acquired by a big kind of either someone in the pet space or in the human space, or someone who kind of maybe...
So you do have an exit plan as opposed to world domination as such?
Kind of to an extent, yeah. I suppose it depends on the kind of the growth of the business. Like we're growing really well now. We're fully self-funded. I own the business 100%. So we're in a really nice position that we're profitable. And it's a really nice high growth area. We've all of our manufacturing in-house. So we've a lot of the foundational stuff done right that like we would be prime for investment. But I suppose we want someone who's going to really bring smart money and open doors and open new markets.
Yeah. I'm a great fan myself of 3 to 5 year goal sets, and then we hone it back to a detailed 1 year, 1 quarter, 1 month, 4 weeks kind of thing. But I was reading just yesterday, and my brain's a bit dead at the minute. I can't remember which CEO it was, but it was one of the unicorn CEOs, so multi-billion pound business. And he attributes part of his success to Christmas, obviously 25th of December. His birthday was on the 30th of December. In those 5 days between Christmas and his birthday, every year he would write his obituary as if he was going to die by the end of the next year.
Okay.
And it made me start thinking, because I thought, shit, if you know you've only got 1 year, that really focuses the brain on, what am I going to do in that year? I've only got 1 fucking year left. What am I going to achieve? What's going to be my legacy? If I did nothing else, what stamp am I going to leave on the world? But it also forces you to think, I also need to enjoy time with family, with loved ones, with community and stuff. So that really kind of grabbed me yesterday, to do your next year planning as if it was an obituary for a year's time kind of thing. And
it's an interesting perspective.
And writing out what you're going to have achieved in that year. So I know we'll speak again. I hope you've enjoyed this session as much as I have. Look at hempheroes.com, but also take some of those points from there. Persistence, networking, never giving up. Being clear on what you want to do, having a plan, whether it's 3 years or 1 year. What are you going to achieve? What's going to be your legacy if in 12 months today you died and people say, in that last year it was amazing what he or she achieved? If you've enjoyed today's session as much as I have, do like, do subscribe, do share, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Success is a System.